Shocking. Just when fans thought the story between Max Holloway and Conor McGregor had been left in the past forever, a stunning explanation has changed the entire conversation surrounding one of the biggest rematches in UFC history. A former UFC heavyweight contender believes the answer is actually much simpler than everyone is making it out to be. And if he's right, this blockbuster fight at welterweight suddenly makes perfect sense. The rivalry that began over a decade ago is about to be rewritten. But the real reason behind Holloway's decision might surprise even longtime MMA fans. Everyone expected endless debate about weight classes, career risks, and championship ambitions. Yet one opinion has cut through all the noise with a brutally direct perspective. As anticipation continues building toward UFC 329, every interview, every prediction, and every training update is adding another layer to a fight that already carries enormous pressure. Max Holloway has built his reputation by accepting challenges that many fighters would avoid, while Conor McGregor is preparing for the most important comeback of his career after years away from the octagon. Those two stories are now crashing into each other once again, and the stakes couldn't be much higher. Their first meeting happened back in 2013, when both men were still climbing toward greatness. Since then, Holloway transformed into one of the greatest featherweights ever, setting incredible records through relentless activity and unforgettable performances. McGregor, meanwhile, became the biggest superstar the sport has ever produced, changing the business side of mixed martial arts forever with his charisma and championship success. Now, the calendar has moved forward by more than a decade, but unfinished business still remains. One major talking point has dominated every discussion surrounding this rematch. Why would Holloway agree to compete at welterweight instead of demanding a lower division that appears more comfortable for him? Fans questioned whether the size difference could become a deciding factor. Others wondered if Holloway was chasing the biggest payday of his career. Some even believed emotion was clouding his judgment. But then a former UFC heavyweight contender offered an explanation that instantly grabbed attention. According to his view, the situation isn't complicated at all. Fighters spend their entire lives chasing opportunities that define legacies, and when someone like Conor McGregor offers that opportunity, the decision becomes incredibly straightforward. From that perspective, Holloway isn't obsessing over scales, numbers, or physical disadvantages. He's looking at the chance to erase the only loss that has followed him throughout his remarkable rise, and to defeat the sport's biggest attraction on one of its brightest stages. Suddenly, the entire narrative feels different. Instead of asking why Holloway accepted the fight, people started asking why anyone in his position would possibly refuse it. That simple argument quickly spread through the MMA community because it connects with something every competitor understands. Opportunities like this rarely appear twice. Holloway himself has never hidden his desire to run things back with McGregor. He has openly said that he'd be willing to fight him regardless of the weight class because revenge carries enormous value after so many years. Rather than complaining about giving away size, Holloway has consistently projected confidence that fighting is ultimately about skill, preparation, and heart. Those comments only strengthen the belief that his motivation goes far beyond weight divisions. But what happened next made the discussion even more fascinating. Instead of dismissing Holloway's willingness, many analysts started pointing toward McGregor's side of the equation. The Irish superstar hasn't competed inside the octagon for years, making this comeback one of the most closely watched returns in UFC history. Questions remain about timing, conditioning, speed, durability, and whether he can still perform under championship-level pressure. Holloway understands all of that, yet he refuses to underestimate the former double champion. In every public appearance, Holloway has spoken as though he expects the very best version of McGregor to show up. That mindset reveals exactly how seriously he's taking this challenge. There are no shortcuts, no excuses waiting in advance, and no attempts to lower expectations. He knows defeating a diminished opponent would never silence critics completely. Beating a dangerous McGregor at his absolute best would create a moment remembered for years. That's exactly why this fight has become so compelling. It isn't simply about rankings or records anymore. It's about redemption versus resurrection. One man wants to rewrite an old chapter, while the other wants to prove that his greatest chapters are still ahead. Those two motivations are now colliding in spectacular fashion, and every training clip fuels even more speculation. Then another massive twist entered the conversation. Some observers began arguing that the welterweight setting could actually remove one of Holloway's biggest challenges. Instead of forcing a brutal weight cut, he can focus almost entirely on performance, recovery, and preparation. Others immediately fired back, insisting that fighting naturally larger opponents introduces completely different dangers once the cage door closes. The debate exploded across the MMA world because both sides presented convincing arguments. Nobody truly knows how Holloway will look carrying extra weight against an experienced striker with proven knockout power. At the same time, nobody knows how McGregor will respond after such a lengthy absence from elite competition. Those unanswered questions are exactly what's driving excitement higher every single day. And the biggest twist was still coming. That uncertainty is exactly why the former heavyweight contender's explanation continues gaining momentum. His point wasn't based on complicated strategy or endless technical analysis. It was built around the mindset shared by elite competitors. When a fighter reaches the level Holloway has achieved, legacy becomes every bit as valuable as championship gold. Victories are remembered, but the names attached to those victories often define an entire career, and defeating McGregor remains one of the biggest achievements available in mixed martial arts. Looking at Holloway's journey makes that perspective even stronger. He has faced elite opponents across multiple generations, survived brutal battles, and delivered unforgettable performances that cemented his place among the sport's all-time greats. Yet every legendary career still contains one chapter that athletes wish they could rewrite. For Holloway, that chapter has always pointed back to his first meeting with McGregor. Time has changed both men completely, but the opportunity to settle unfinished business has never disappeared. That is why this rematch carries emotional weight that statistics simply cannot measure. Fans often focus on records, reach, and physical attributes, while fighters frequently think about moments that shape history. Holloway understands that one unforgettable victory can outweigh years of routine success. A win over the biggest star the UFC has ever promoted would instantly become one of the defining highlights of his career, regardless of which weight class the contest takes place in. But there is another side to this story that cannot be ignored. McGregor enters this fight with enormous pressure, resting squarely on his shoulders. The expectations surrounding his comeback are unlike anything seen in recent UFC history. Supporters believe he can still produce magic under the brightest lights, while critics question whether years away from competition have permanently changed the explosive athlete who once dominated two divisions. Every interview becomes headline news. Every training update sparks debate. Every public appearance creates fresh speculation. That level of attention guarantees one thing: there will be no hiding once fight night arrives. If McGregor wins, many will claim the superstar has completed one of the greatest comebacks in MMA history. If he loses, the conversation surrounding his future could shift dramatically overnight. Holloway recognizes exactly what's at stake, which makes his willingness to accept the challenge even more fascinating. Rather than chasing a safer opponent, he has embraced the biggest spotlight possible, and that decision speaks volumes about his confidence. Another interesting detail has emerged from discussions surrounding preparation. Analysts believe Holloway's trademark cardio could become one of the most important factors if the contest extends into the later rounds. Throughout his career, relentless pace has broken opponents mentally as much as physically. McGregor, on the other hand, has produced some of his most spectacular victories through explosive early offense and precision striking. Those contrasting styles create a fascinating tactical battle before the opening bell has even sounded. One fighter thrives by maintaining constant pressure over time. The other has repeatedly shown he can end fights with a single perfectly timed sequence. That contrast alone is enough to keep fans guessing, because nobody knows which approach will ultimately control the cage. Then another huge update entered the conversation. Several respected voices around MMA pointed out that experience alone cannot predict this matchup. Holloway has remained consistently active against elite competition, while McGregor has spent years rebuilding, recovering, and preparing for another opportunity at greatness. Activity brings rhythm and timing. Rest can restore the body, while also creating uncertainty. Nobody truly understands which factor will matter more until the first exchange unfolds inside the octagon. And that mystery is making the anticipation even stronger. The psychological battle may prove just as important as the physical one. Holloway has matured into one of the calmest competitors in the sport, rarely allowing emotions to dictate his performances. McGregor built his reputation by applying relentless mental pressure long before fights actually begin. Their personalities could create an intriguing contrast throughout fight week, especially when microphones, cameras, and face-to-face moments place both men under intense public scrutiny. Every stare, every comment, and every reaction will be analyzed from every possible angle. Sometimes, the smallest moment outside the cage creates the biggest talking point before the fight even starts. That possibility adds another unpredictable layer to an already compelling matchup. As excitement continues building, one reality has become impossible to ignore. This contest represents far more than a simple rematch between two famous names. It combines redemption, legacy, comeback, pride, and unfinished history into a single event that could reshape how both careers are remembered. The former heavyweight contender's explanation may sound surprisingly simple, but perhaps simplicity is exactly why it resonates with so many people. Elite fighters rarely spend their careers searching for comfortable situations. They chase moments capable of changing history forever. Holloway appears to believe this is one of those moments, while McGregor sees the same fight as the perfect stage to remind the world who he is. Only one of them can leave the cage with that dream fulfilled. And when the octagon door finally closes, years of debate, predictions, and speculation will instantly give way to one unforgettable answer.